The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, and thank you for joining us for Lunch with Haley, provided and presented by Haley Marketing Group. My name is Brad Smith. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer here at Haley Marketing, and I'm joined by Prudence Shank, our Director of SEO. Prudence, thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So today we have a fun topic on something near and dear to my heart, and I know Prudence's as well. We're going to talk about staffing SEO, search engine optimization. And this isn't going to be a high-level 101 webinar about what SEO is. This is going to be a deeper dive into what we need to consider as staffing and recruiting companies in 2022. What's changed in the game? What's working? What do we need to adjust? What do we need to adapt? And really practically, what can we do to drive more visibility for our staffing companies, get more clients in the door, and perhaps even more importantly, get more candidates in the door so that we can fill those open job orders. So I mentioned that this isn't going to be high-level 101 stuff, but we've got a few slides right up front just to address that right off the bat, and then we're going to jump into the important stuff. So, Prudence, if you don't mind, talk to us a little bit about what SEO actually is and clear up any misconceptions we might have.
Right. So SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization, and it's the process of driving targeted traffic to your website. That is people that you want to buy or use your services, but they might not know who you are. They might not have ever heard of you before, but they need you. What SEO isn't, and I think it's important to say, is that it's not ranking number one for an obscure term or even necessarily ranking number one for staffing agency. It's a holistic approach to getting yourself in front of people who need your services.
Yeah, and that's really important. All too often, I think we focus just in on one single term, and you're going to see here in a minute why we can't do that. So, Prudence, why does SEO even matter? Why are we here?
Right. Well, because people, despite what you may have heard, are looking for jobs. Companies do need to hire, and they don't all know who you are. And that's where they start. They start with Google, and they start with terms like jobs, near me jobs, jobs near me, staffing agency, which I just said you don't necessarily want to rank number one for, but we can talk about that a little bit later. And recruitment terms. These are things that people are searching for when they are looking for staffing and recruiting services.
Yeah, and like Prince just mentioned, we don't want to focus just in on one term, because even if you look at this list really quickly, and this is just a quick snapshot, you see that there's just a variety of different terms that people are using. So some might be looking for temping agencies, some might use temp agencies, some might use staffing, some might use recruitment, some might not even think about using a temp agency, but are looking for employment or companies that are hiring near me. And if you get myopic and focus only on the word staffing, you're missing out on the majority of traffic. So if you'll leave here with one thing in mind, make sure that your SEO strategy isn't focused on a singular term. And, you might have a false sense of security if you rank well for staffing in your market, and you might be leaving a ton of opportunity on the table. So really important to look at it holistically, like Prudence just said. So let's talk about where you should start, okay? Again, this isn't 101, but I'm going to cover these real quick. And these are just the basics. These are the table stakes. We need to make sure that our keywords aren't singularly focused like we just talked about. We want to look at buyer intent. Prudence started off by saying that SEO is about driving traffic from people that are looking for your services, for your products, or for the solution that you offer. We need to make sure that we're focused around what users want and are searching for. And then we need to make sure that we have on-page SEO. So we need to address meta titles, meta descriptions, make sure that we have the right tagging, and programmatically things are set up the right way, built the right way. Well, we need to make sure that we have conversion paths and CTAs, or calls to action. We'll get into that in a little bit more detail. We need to make sure that our site is secure. If you're not on HTTPS already, people probably aren't going to your website because they're getting security warnings in most browsers. Make sure that that's done. And then mobile indexing first. Most staffing websites now, most websites in general, Google has switched over to mobile indexation first. So it's extremely important that you provide a great mobile experience. You have a responsive design. We'll touch on that a little bit. But again, these are the basics. These are the table stakes. If you're unsure on any of these, go to lunchwithhaley.com. We have a recording from last year or the year before that goes into more detail into each of these areas. But we want to move on to the stuff that's changing in 2022. Before we do that, again, all of these different factors are just table stakes right now. We need to look at domain, on-page, inbound links, experience, social. These all matter, okay? But again, we're looking at what's new in 2022. So let's get right into more advanced SEO. What are we seeing in the market? What's working? What isn't? What do you, as a staffing and recruiting company, need to be focused on? And we're going to start with something called search intent. So, Prudence, I alluded to it, but explain search intent in a little bit more detail, if you would.
Sure. So if you put yourself in a searcher's position, we all use Google, right? And why do we Google? We Google when we need to know something, when we want to learn something, or when we have a question we need an answer to. So thankfully, Google has gotten smarter about this, and they understand that there is a reason behind someone's whatever they've typed in, their search query. So the main goal when you're thinking about SEO and developing keywords and developing a strategy is to think about why people are typing in specific queries. So let's say someone types in industrial jobs hiring near me. You can pretty much infer that the intent of that searcher is to find industrial jobs that are hiring near their specific location. But there's 4 types of overarching search intent that we need to think about. And the first one is informational, and that's the intent to learn something. Someone that's doing an informational search wants to answer a specific question or solve a very specific problem. Searchers that are using this type of search include words like how to or what is, things like that. It's informational. They also do commercial investigation. This is about looking for more information, but the end goal is basically to buy or do something. They want to take an action at the end of it. So while they're looking for information, they can be persuaded to take an action or to convert at the end of that search. Navigational search intent is somebody that has heard of your staffing or recruiting company, but they don't remember your name, or not your name. They remember your name, but they don't remember your address. So they'll say ABC Staffing, Phoenix, Arizona, looking for you. And then there's transactional, which is the intent to do something. These users are looking for, they want to take a specific action. In digital marketing, we usually think of this as some sort of conversion, like a download, a purchase, a job application, things like that. They've transacted with your website. If your content doesn't match what the search intent is, it won't rank. So let's use ourselves for an example. Our podcast, Secrets of Staffing Success, surely is one of the best recruiting podcasts out there, but we're not going to rank for best recruiting podcasts, because when people search for that, they're looking for an aggregator. They want a list. They want something they can browse and poke around. So if we tried to optimize for that, we would be wasting our time, even though, like I said, we are one of the best staffing and recruiting podcasts out there. So you really need to put yourself in the shoes of the people who need you and think about it from their perspective.
Excellent, thanks. And to put this into some use cases and thinking about search intent, Prudence mentioned earlier that job search traffic hasn't completely disappeared, but as you can imagine, it's declined. Less people are out there searching for work. We have historically low unemployment rates. We have a lot of people sitting on the sidelines. We had a lot of people retire. So we need to rethink searcher intent, okay? Job search traffic has declined. It peaked back in January and February before the pandemic, and today it's 65% of what it was. So maybe we need to adjust our SEO focus. If people aren't specifically looking for jobs, what are they looking for? So we can use intelligence, we can use data to make better decisions and make inferences about what our staffing and recruiting website needs to provide in order to get those people off the sidelines, in order to entice them, in order to attract them to rejoining the workforce. And again, we can look at data, we can look at trends, and I'll just highlight a few of these. Now, when we're going through and doing SEO strategy, we're having deep conversations with our clients about their business, about the type of people they recruit, about the type of companies they work with. And then we're doing data analysis to see what those key decision makers are actually searching for. Might be staffing, it might be employment, but it might be something related that isn't directly tied to a keyword like staffing or recruitment. Remote work is an example. Not surprising, we've seen a strong upward trend in remote work search trends. If you work with companies that are offering remote work, let's optimize our websites around that to attract more people there. Another is salary. And what's interesting for me with salary is that we saw some spikes in traffic around salary related searches back in September. If you think about that, what happened in September? Well, we had a lot of states that the federal extended unemployment ended in. Okay, so we saw spikes in salary searches when people were looking to get back to work. There's also data out there that shows that people's savings accounts are beginning to be depleted now that those subsidies are no longer happening. So what's happening now in February? We're seeing this huge upward trend and upward spike in traffic tied to salary searches. So again, not directly related to staffing, not directly related to a job search, but you can infer the user has search intent around finding a job. Okay? We can optimize our websites, our content, our resources around salary search in a market, in an industry, in a specialty segment that we recruit for. And we can get a lot more of that candidate traffic over to our site. We can also get a lot of that client traffic over to our site because companies are feeling the pinch right now. They're having turnover. They're seeing people jump for new opportunities based on salary. Those clients want to know if they're paying competitive wages. Let's get that content into our website. Let's optimize it. Let's take advantage of this data and these search trends. Here's another one, how to find a new job. Okay, this does have direct search intent around a job, but it's not just jobs in a specific city. It's how to find a new job in a specific city, or how to find a new job in a specific skill set or specialty area. And again, you see these same trends. It spiked when federal subsidies ended, and now it's spiking again. Let's take advantage of that. Here's another one, how to retire early. This has nothing to do with a job search on the surface. But if you think about it, we have seen a mass exodus in our workforce. Baby boomers are retiring at record paces. We've never seen more retirements than we did in 2020 and 2021. Okay, the pandemic played a hand in that, but people are exiting the workforce and we're not replacing them. But a lot of people might want to leave the workforce officially, but don't have the financial means to do that. Maybe they need a part-time job. Maybe they need temp work. Maybe they want more flexibility in their schedule. That plays directly into the value proposition that staffing and recruiting companies offer. You have this massive talent shortage. Let's look at opportunities to re-engage with people that would like to retire early, maybe are researching it. Let's give them and educate them that you can help them do that and supplement their income. It's a great way for you to prosper, fill more of your open positions, get a higher level of candidate, and drive a ton more traffic. I have not seen many staffing companies doing a great job at this right now. It's a huge opportunity for us. Let's take advantage. Prudence, what other things are you seeing in your research? What are audiences searching for?
Right, and like you said, it's not always what you think it is. Sometimes you have to kind of peel back the onion a little bit and again think about that intent. Like you said, salary trends are huge. People looking for career changes and new opportunities are huge right now. Employers are dealing with a massive amount of turnover and staff shortages. Similar to new opportunities, we're seeing a lot of industry-related certification searches. People who want to maybe change careers or, and used the pandemic to get a certification, and now they're trying to find a job in that new field, things like that. Local community events are important. Don't ever underestimate those. And people always want to know about the best places to work. Do you work with great employers? what employers have high satisfaction scores. You've probably heard on the news, people, if an employer doesn't align with someone's values, they've been, quitting. That's one of the reasons why they're leaving. They're looking for more meaningful work. So things like that. And another one that isn't on this list, but I just had a good conversation about this morning, actually, is I'm seeing more upward trends for minority-owned businesses and women-owned businesses. And I think that's in direct relation to some of the cultural shifts that we've seen in the last couple of years. So if you are a business with that certification, now's probably a good time to capitalize on that. People are always asking how to capitalize on that, and it's never really been a thing, but it's definitely starting to become something people are looking for when choosing companies to work with and work for.
I'm glad you brought that up. That's a huge point. And if you do have those certifications, if you are minority-owned business, woman-owned business, take advantage of that. There are people that are searching out suppliers that meet that criteria. So create a page on your website dedicated to that, build content around that, and make sure that people know that and can find it. Few others that come to the top of my mind too, with the pandemic, many moms were hit disproportionately hard during this, and many opted to stay home because they couldn't find childcare. Now they might be out there searching for childcare options. That might be something that you could compile a list around and get up on your website. Again, not tied to jobs, not tied to employment, but there's a reason that they're probably looking for childcare or daycare because they're getting ready to re-enter the workforce. So think about those things that might lead up to a job search and create content pages, optimize around those things. And then when you do identify some topics that you want to potentially write about, potentially explore as an opportunity to drive more traffic, open your mind beyond just one or two different keywords. Because Google and the other search engines are getting more advanced. They're using algorithms to determine whether or not you should rank well for a specific topic. And it's tied to something we call semantic search. So it's no longer okay just to fill your website with one specific term and rank well. You can't do that anymore. Google knows that you're trying to game the system. So what you need to do is think about one main keyword phrase that you want to rank well for, and then look at all of the related keywords tied to that, and then the secondary related keywords tied to that. So in the example here, not to get political, but if you wanted to rank well for the White House, you couldn't just write content and add content and optimize all around White House. You'd have to incorporate president, Washington, government, Biden, Trump, Senate, House of Republicans, Congress, Declaration of Independence, all of those different things into your content so that your site holistically ranks for a topic, okay, and takes into account all of those related keywords. So it's becoming much more challenging, but what's happening is it's giving searchers better data, better information, better results, and they're more often to use Google or the other search engine to find that. So again, build your authority. And that's kind of a nice transition here. This webinar series is called Lunch with Haley. So I thought this fit in perfectly. It's time to eat. It's lunchtime, but it might not be what you're thinking here. Google has an acronym called EAT. And Prudence, can you walk through what that stands for and why it's important?
Yeah, so Google Eat is something that you should think about anytime you are creating new content. Content that follows the EAT principles will have a better chance of performing than content that does not. It's actually used as a ranking factor, and it stands for expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. So are you sharing great content that solves people's search queries, that answers their questions? Are you authoritative in your content? Do you know what you're talking about? Can you talk about it at a deeper level? Do you cover a variety of related issues? Are people clicking and sharing your content via email, via social? Are they spreading it around? And how reputable is your brand and your domain? How long are people staying there, reading it, and how are they interacting with it? those are three things you really have to think about when you're making new content, so that you're not just creating content for content's sake.
All right, so far we've covered a lot. We've talked about search intent. We've talked about what queries people are using, what information they're seeking out. We talked about how we can use that to our advantage, even if people aren't specifically searching for jobs or a staffing service. We've talked about becoming and sharing our expertise, authority, and trustworthiness. So that all goes into hopefully ranking in Google search results. Okay. Now, our goal is not to just rank in search results, it's to get people over to our website. Now, once we get people over to our website, it doesn't end there. We need to make sure that they have a good experience once they hit our website. So when we talk about user experience, it's really how somebody interacts and engages with your website once they click on Google on your website and end up there. Now, why this is so important is, let's say you're ranking well for staffing agencies in Tulsa, and somebody gets to your website and they leave after 3 seconds because the page that they land on has nothing to do with staffing or nothing to do with jobs or employment, or it just doesn't fit what they're looking for. Google sees that. Google knows that people are abandoning your site right away. So in Google's eyes, that tells them, holy cow, this website really doesn't meet the searcher's needs. So why in the world would we keep them ranked highly? Why in the world would we continue to send traffic over to their site? So if your site doesn't provide a good experience and you were ranking well in search, you're probably going to fall. So when you're looking at your website, there's several user experience metrics that we want to pay particular attention to. And Prudence, I know when you're optimizing a website, when our team is going through and continually optimizing a website, you're looking at user experience metrics, right?
Yeah. We always look at ranking, but like you said, it's more than that. And user experience sounds woo-woo and kind of subjective, but you can actually quantify it through Google Analytics and real honest data. So the metrics that we think about when we're looking at user experience are the click-through rate, the dwell time, and the bounce rate. So how many people who saw your website in a search clicked on it? How long did they stay there? What did they do when they get there? Those are the three things that we want to pay attention to, because like you said, if people click on it and then just go, no, out of here, you're not going to rank well. If people are not clicking on it at all, you're going to drop pretty quickly. So it's, again, we have to think about not only what the users are thinking when they type it in, but once they see your website, what are they doing? Are they interacting with it, and how?
All right, so this information hopefully is good to know, but just knowing this information isn't enough. We're going to walk through now what you need to do to improve user experience. So Prudence and I will kind of go back and forth on some of these topics, but here are the things that you should really do to improve user experience and ultimately drive more search traffic and drive more conversions on your staffing website. At the end of the day, it's not enough to rank well. It's not enough to get that traffic to your site. It's providing an amazing experience once people do land there so that you get more applications and you fill more job orders. So Prudence, talk to us a little bit about page structure.
Right. So whether you're thinking about your website proper, like your services pages, or you're thinking about even your blog posts, you want to think about page structure. When someone opens up a page, what's it look like? How easy is it for them to find what they're looking for? And most importantly, can they easily take action? If they have to scroll through 80 paragraphs to find a way to call you or search for a job, they're going to abandon the page. So you want to think about, where you're putting strategic CTAs. You don't also want to overwhelm people with CTAs. We have to strike a nice balance, but you do want to make it very easy for them to find the answer to their question. Then that could be, do you provide the service they're looking for? Do you provide the type of jobs they're looking for? And then can they search for the job? Can they submit a resume without it being attached to a job? Can a potential client contact you or request employees? Or if you want them to download something, can they do that easily? Or do they have to poke around for it? We don't want anyone poking around. We want them to land, find what they want, and take the action.
And when you're thinking about page structure too, a lot of people get keyed in just on desktop. I mentioned earlier at the beginning of this, most staffing websites and most websites in general, Google switched over to a mobile index first. So they're looking at the mobile site. So it's important that you look at page structure both on desktop and mobile and make sure people can easily do what Prudence just outlined on both sides. Really, really important there. Prudence, I know you're really big on every page having a purpose. What do you mean by that?
Everyone on our team and anyone who's ever worked with me as a client is rolling their eyes because they've heard me go through this mantra a million times. But my mantra is one page, one purpose. And that's for a reason. Google is smart, but you have to provide Google with the context it needs in order to rank a page well. So every page should have a singular purpose. We don't want, if you, let's say you're a staffing company that staffs for light industrial, administrative, legal, engineering, information technology, and construction. If you put all of that onto a single page, Google doesn't have any idea how to rank that. It doesn't know what's the most important to you. It doesn't know what you do best. But if you break those down and have a page for each specialty and it has a purpose, then it's going to rank better. Thank you. Here's an example. This company, as you can see, does several different things that don't fall into one nice little bucket. So what we did when we did their website was we separated out all of their specialties and each page has a purpose. And then we can optimize for terms around accounting and finance, tax and audit, construction, engineering. We don't have to confuse Google. We say, hey, if you need construction recruiting, this is the page you want to rank right here. We're good at this. And then we include on pages like this copy that's directed both at potential clients and candidates. Because if this is the entry point into the website, we want them to be able, like we said, to take action simply and easily. So we have a lot of success with those. And we also have a lot of success with location pages. So if you have different office locations, and even if you don't have different office locations, but you serve a market that's not where your headquarters are, we can create location pages for you that are focused on searches that people are conducting locally. Staffing company in Phoenix, tech recruiting agency in Phoenix, tech recruiting agency in Los Angeles. That way it kind of separates it out, creates basically a landing page for that specific geography, so that you're not trying to jam all of your locations onto every other page so that Google knows where you are. It's a nice organizational way to tell Google what you do, how you do it, and where you do it.
So Prudence, I love the examples here. Now, in this particular case, like let's say we weren't ranking well for tech recruiting agency in Phoenix. By putting this page up, are you pretty much guaranteeing that you're going to rank for that term?
Well, no, there's no guarantees in anything when it comes to Google, but you are certainly increasing your chances. And something that we'll talk about in a little bit is local search, and local search is important. So I'm going to stick a pin in that because we're going to get into that a little bit later.
Yeah, that was kind of a leading question. But I wanted to highlight that just because you're adding content doesn't guarantee that you're going to rank well. It increases the likelihood, increases the chances, but there's so many different variables that go into it. Now, if you don't have these separate pages, we can almost guarantee that you won't. But in this case, they weren't ranking for this client wasn't ranking for tech recruiting agency in Phoenix before this new site and this new page was launched. Once we did, the day after the site launched, they weren't ranking for it. But fast forward a month or two, and now they are. And I want to say like they're maybe in the 8-9 spot, maybe 7 spot in Google. And as the site continues to gain visibility, longevity, as they create other pieces of content around tech recruiting in Phoenix or tech advancements in Arizona and semantically related terms, all of those things are going to help them continue to climb the search rankings. So our goal over time is to go from not ranking on page 1 to ranking on page 1 to ranking in the top 5 to ranking in the top 3. Okay. We're always looking to improve our rank, drive more visibility, but that doesn't happen by just putting one page up. We need to take a more holistic approach. And that kind of ties into our next section here in that SEO is a process. It's not an event. So a lot of people, when they think about search engine optimization, tie this to launching a new website. And while that's important, and you need to make sure that you have a good foundation in your website and it's optimized in the right way, SEO is an ongoing process. It's not a one-time thing. You can't set it and forget it. So in this next section, we're going to walk through what our process here at Hailing Marketing Group is. Okay, it starts with that foundation. Okay, that foundation is when you're designing a new website, making sure that you're covering all those industries that you serve, like Prudence mentioned, and having an individual page for each of those areas. It's locations and having individual pages for those locations. It's looking at your services, your jobs, your About Us section, your team members, all of that. We need to make sure that we have a strong foundation. If you don't have a strong foundation, nothing else is going to matter. Okay, but once you have a strong foundation, again, you cannot set it and forget it. It's too important now. We need to have a plan proactively moving forward to, number one, maintain our search rankings, and number two, get and improve our search rankings, get new keywords, get new search terms that we rank for. We want a bigger piece of the pie from clients and candidates that are searching for what you offer or problems that you can solve. So we're going to focus in on these next 5 bullets. We're going to look at user experience and dig deeper into that. We're going to talk about search impression trends, competitive analysis, long-form content, which is a big ranking factor. And then we'll talk about how you need to continually rinse and repeat this. So let's dig into each of these areas. And as we go through this, hopefully you're going to leave here with very specific tips that you can implement on your own website to drive more candidate traffic and more client traffic. So user experience, Prudence, we touched on this earlier, but walk us through how you use Google Analytics to determine whether or not you have a good user experience.
Right. So let's say you create one of those pages that I just talked about, and you give it, 3 months or so to kind of gain some traction, and you want to check and see how it's doing. We want to look at those metrics that we talked about before: bounce rate, exit time, time on page. What are people doing when they find that page? If they're not interacting with it, if they're not taking an action, and if in 2022 it is not a strong mobile experience, we need to tweak it a little bit. And I think it's important to understand that it's okay to tweak. People sometimes say, well, we put this, why do I have to change this page? Why do I have to do this? Well, we don't have to rewrite it necessarily. We just need to make some tweaks. And we do that because we don't want the funnel to be leaky, right? We spend time, we create this content, you put all this work into this, you want it to work for you. So if people aren't interacting with that content, if they're not landing on that content, look at that specific page and then figure out what the heck is going wrong. So you want to look at your headlines. When we talk about headlines, I mean, it's okay to be cute and fun, but you really do kind of just want to be direct and precise. People skim pages to find what they want, and your headlines provide that guide for them. If you're being cutesy wootsy, people don't know what you're talking about. And then you want to read the copy. Does the copy need to be adjusted? Does it have to be more keyword robust? Do we need to think more about semantics? Do we need more copy? Because the page with 2 sentences on it is never going to rank. Like I said, Google needs context. So you might have to beef up the copy a little bit. You might have to rearrange it. You might have to add more headlines. And then you want to think about your calls to action. Where are they? Are they easy to find? Do they make sense? Nobody likes to learn more. Don't use learn more. I mean, no one wants to learn. We don't want to learn more. They want to call, they want to contact, they want to search, they want to apply. Use action-oriented terms when you're talking about a call to action. Then you want to identify any navigational issues. That can be weird things, anything from like when someone clicks on your nav bar and it covers something up, or it loops around or does something weird, or they can't find what they're looking for. You don't want people to have to jump around 3-4 pages to find what they're looking for. Everything should be accessible from that page. And it's okay, and it's actually really good to go back and refresh old content that might be outdated, might use outdated terms, something maybe you don't even do anymore. Get it out of there. You don't want it there. So, you don't have to let your content go stale. You can actually breathe new life into old content and get it to perform really well for you.
Yeah, and I love that point. And it's something that we do with our clients that we're doing ongoing SEO services for. So everything that we're talking about today, we offer as a service. We go through and do this for you month over month, and it's really focused around what your goals are. But this is an example of a client that we're doing this for. So we're looking at fixing leaks in their funnel to see some nice improvements. And they've invested heavily in content. They've invested heavily in service pages, location pages, different specialties that they staff for. And what we found is that some of these pages didn't have a great user experience over time. So when the page or content first launched, the bounce rate was really low. The exit rates were really low. Over time, as that information becomes outdated, those bounce rates creep up. The exit rates creep up. So that's an indicator to us that there's a page experience issue. We could go back and re-update that content, and that's exactly what we're doing. In this case, this particular client saw a 41, almost 42% decrease in bounce rate. Okay, which means that over 40% more people are going on to another page, a contact page, an application page, something else. So your website's living, breathing, your content's living, breathing, and you need to make sure that you have a plan in place to look at the data, look at what's happening over time with search trends, and make adjustments. In this particular example, I found this morning that piece of content that we wrote in the beginning of 2021 about top paying jobs and demand in that year is still getting traffic. Well, it's a perfect indicator that we need to do a new post or update that content for 2022 so that we continue to get that traffic. It's really, really impactful. Now I want to talk a little bit about search visibility and click-through rate. Okay, so before anybody even lands on your website, they're doing a Google search. And there's a lot that we can learn from Google Search Console. So Google Search Console is a free data tool that you can use to find out what's happening in search and how often you appear in search results. So when we're going through and planning out our SEO strategy, this is one of our best friends. We're using this all the time. So there's 3 metrics that I love. One is total impressions. So impressions are the number of times that you're showing up in search results. So could be on page 1, could be on page 3. Okay, but it's the number of times somebody sees your website listed in search results. Average CTR, or click-through rate, is the percentage of times they're actually clicking on it. Okay, an average position is on average in a given week or month, where did you show up in search results? Now, one time you might show up in the 6 slot, one time you might show up in the 5 or the 4. It varies, and it'll vary search by search and depend on location, but this gives you an average. Now, I want to walk through how we go about using this. And if we look at this data set down here at the bottom, when we have an impression where we're getting 1,150 impressions in search, and we only have a 0.6% click-through rate. So only 7 people clicked on that, but we showed up in search results over 1,100 times. And we're in a good ranking spot. So we're in like the 3rd, 4th spot usually. Okay, this tells me that we have an opportunity. Okay, we have an opportunity to increase our click-through rate and earn more of that traffic. We're already ranking, and we need to improve that click-through rate pretty quick, or else we're not going to maintain that rank. Okay, so let's get into some practical examples here. Again, I want to identify search queries with high impressions and have strong buyer intent. Okay, so in that example of 1,150 impressions, I'm going to go through and I'm going to change our metadata. So what shows up in search results, I'm going to improve a stronger call to action. I'm going to outline the value that somebody's going to get from clicking on our listing in search. And what's going to happen when I do that is that it'll eventually get indexed by Google. And if I'm keying in on the right value that the searcher is going to get, if I can prove to them that they're going to get their search query answered by clicking on my site, this click-through rate is going to go through the roof. My rankings will probably improve, and I'm going to convert a lot more of those 11 or 1,200 searchers into clicks. Okay, so a big opportunity for me to gain market share there. The other thing that I want to do is, again, sort by total impressions, and then I want to look at my position. Okay, and second on the list here, this keyword would get 7,200 impressions. Okay, but we have a low click-through rate, and we're only in the 8, 9, 10 spot in Google. Okay, so we're not high enough in search results. So in this case, I'm going to go back to this page, and I'm going to, number one, see what keywords I'm ranking for and what keywords are driving these impressions. And I'm going to change maybe the post title, maybe the content on the post. Maybe I'm going to add more relevancy to that page. Maybe I'm going to build out my content and make it longer. And by doing that, I'm going to, again, convert more of those impressions into clicks, and I'm going to improve my overall search rank. So for me, looking at Google Search Console outlines exactly what I need to do to drive and earn more of the traffic that I'm already showing up in search results for. Hope that wasn't too confusing, but great process to enhance your current rankings and drive more traffic. Now, I want to talk about competitive analysis. This is one of my favorite SEO strategies and something that has proven to be extremely effective. When we go about this, and again, we do this for clients on an ongoing basis, we'll go through and identify your 5 to 10 top competitors in your market. Okay, that market could be city, geography, town, or that could be industry, depending on if you recruit nationally or not. So we're going to identify who those people are. Okay, then we're going to use technology, and we have tools here that will determine what their top performing content is. So do they have location pages, industry pages, blog posts, white papers that's ranking well? We're going to determine what that content is, and then we're going to create better and more authoritative content to outrank them. Okay, this tells us exactly what your competitors are doing to earn their rank and earn their traffic. And we're reverse engineering that, creating better content. We're not copying them. Okay, we're looking at the holes that are there, and we're creating better, more meaningful, more impactful content that meets that EAT acronym from Google, and we're going to outrank them. And I want to show you the impact of this. So we're using this strategy across the board for a ton of staffing companies. And here's an example of one of our clients. So way back in early 2020, we did this analysis, and we found that one of their competitors had a piece of content that was getting a lot of traffic, approaching 20,000 visits a month. Okay, we wrote a more authoritative piece of content that went into more detail, was probably about twice the length, was really structured well from an SEO standpoint with headlines, subheadings, everything that Prudence mentioned. And after about the 3 or 4 month mark of launching this content, we started to gain some traction. Okay, about the 6 month mark, we overtook the competitor and outranked them. Okay, what happened? Well, their search traffic, this green bar, dropped off a cliff. Ours continued to climb, but their traffic dropped off a cliff and continued to decline because we dethroned them with better, more authoritative content. Now, this blue line here represents their PPC, or their paid spend. Okay, so the green line is earned traffic. This is quote unquote free traffic, organic traffic. The blue line is their paid spend. Okay, they lost all of this organic traffic. Okay, they had to increase their spend by an enormous amount. Okay, this company now is spending anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 a month just to replace the traffic that they lost through better organic traffic. This stuff works. Okay, this is probably a good transition. So the impact that we had here in this top graph was all tied to something I like to call long form content. Prudence, do you mind explaining what that is?
Yeah. So long form content is exactly what it sounds like. But I just want to say first and foremost, it's probably counterintuitive because you've probably been told attention spans are short and people don't have time to read things and they don't want to read things. But the fact of the matter is Google loves long format articles that dive deep into a topic. Why? Because it follows that EAT principle: expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. So when we create long form articles, they are extremely well researched and they are strategically organized to answer a series of questions really around a single theme. So we can incorporate all of those semantically related terms. They're a minimum of 1,500 words. Sometimes they're a little bit longer depending on what the subject is. And it's going to position you as an expert on that topic. And it's going to outrank eventually, like you saw, it takes a little while to build some traction. It'll outrank a competitor's 3-paragraph blog post on the same topic because you have dove deep into that subject. You've really, answered 3, 4, 5 questions that someone might have about that. And maybe they don't read all 1,500 words, but when it's organized properly and you have those strategic headlines, they can skim through and find the answer to the question that they want, and then hopefully take action by clicking on your call to action and either applying for a job or contacting you, etc.
Now, Prudence, we had a question come in from Leslie, and she asked, you mentioned a couple times that we need to write more authoritative. Can you provide examples of what you mean by that? How do we prove we know what we're talking about? Really goes into what Prudence just mentioned. It's looking at this long form content. It's supplementing long form content with shorter blog posts. It's writing around not just a specific topic, but all of those semantically related terms and keywords that people are searching for. And as you begin to write more longer form content, more useful educational content, what's going to happen is more outside people are going to begin sharing it. More other websites are going to begin linking to it. And that's all going to play into your authoritative and relevancy rankings in terms of Google. So it all really starts with this high level educational content. You can also look for other associations, other organizations that you can share content with that they may want to post and link back to your website on. So hopefully that answered your question, Leslie. All right. Prudence, long form content does work, right? I mean, we've got a few more examples here. Do you mind walking through this one?
Oh yeah, sure. This is an example from our own website, and it's pretty recent, and it's pretty self-explanatory when you see that blue line down there. We did a long form article on Facebook removing its jobs marketplace. The original one was posted on December of 2021, so not that long ago, but it really started gaining traction in late January. And then this month, it started getting 2,200 visits per day. And that was great, but it also, when we dove in, we saw that people were actually, they weren't just reading it and moving on, they were going to other service pages on our website. So we've had about 20,000 visits from companies that need to replace lost candidate applications from Facebook. So we're like, great, this is amazing. But then we went back and we strengthened it a little bit, like what we talked about, not letting the funnel leak. You want to capitalize where you see success. And we made things just a little bit stronger CTA, added a fly-in to make it easier for people to take an action. So, again, just because a post does perform well doesn't mean you should ignore it. What can you do to make it just even a little bit better? But when you take those deep dives into a topic that people are really interested in, you will see results.
Yeah, and in this case, I love this, not just because I wrote the article, but because but because it's a timely topic and it took off right away, and there's value in that. Now, over time, once Facebook releases this change, and come June, we'll probably see this traffic decline, and that's okay. But we want to take advantage of it right now. And that's really how you become authoritative, because it's ranking #1 in Google. It actually was ranking for some terms ahead of Facebook's own post. And we're going back through and thinking about how we can capitalize on this. Now, it took a little bit of time, but the impact was pretty quick, just a few weeks, and we're seeing a bunch of traffic. So what's going on locally in your market right now that you can jump on and gain some traction with? Okay, the other thing is, you don't always have a heavy hitter right off the bat. So that Facebook post that I did took like 2-3 weeks before it started gaining traction, and then it took off. In other cases, some long form articles might take a lot longer to gain traction. And this is an example of work that we did for one of our clients. This one post has gotten over 300,000 visits. It was created way back in early 2020 or maybe even late 2019. Okay? It took 2 months for it to start getting decent traffic, a few hundred visits a day. Okay, then it took off, rose in search results, and we saw an opportunity here. So 6-7 months after it originally published, we could go back and update it with current information about 2021. Okay, 2021, we got hit with the pandemic. So we went back, updated this content that was doing well, updated it so that it was more impactful for the challenges that people were facing because of the pandemic. And then we wrote shorter blog posts around it that linked back to it. And then you saw this huge uptick in traffic. Okay, we rode that wave for a little while, still getting amazing traffic. You're talking anywhere between 500 and 1,000 visits a day. Okay, and then it started to decline a little bit. We saw that because we're looking at traffic data. And then we went back and we adjusted headlines. We adjusted the H tags. We modified this based on Search Console data. Okay, like we mentioned earlier. What happened? A few weeks later, another big uptick. Rode that wave. Okay, we saw it start to decline a little bit. And then we said, all right, let's go back and update this guide for 2022. Okay, there's a lot that's changing. We updated that. We shared it across social networks. What happened? Traffic jumped through the roof. We're getting 1,500 views a day at the peak, a day, on this one particular post. And what's so impressive is that people are spending 6 minutes on this content, and then they're hopping over to other pages on the website. So long format content can work quick, or it can take a little bit of time. But once you start building that traction, don't just rest on your laurels. Go back and look at what you can do to continue to improve that post. And if we're doing ongoing SEO for you, these are the type of things that we're doing to drive more and more traffic and capitalize where we can. So the key takeaway here is this process really works. Rinse and repeat, just like that example I just showed you. We need to make sure that we're continually evolving. All right. So that's a lot of the technical stuff. Now, I want to be a little bit more forward thinking, and let's look at what else is going to impact us, and we'll do a quick round robin here. What else can we expect in 2022 and beyond? So, Prudence, you're up.
Yeah, so the rise of zero-click searches, it's going to continue. And what is a zero-click search? It's something we've all done. We've Googled who was the 13th president of the United States, Millard Fillmore. We don't want to read about Millard Fillmore. We just needed to know who it was to impress our friends or answer a trivia question or something. So we never click on anything. We got our answer and we move on. So way back in like 2019, over 50% of searches were this type of search. People asked a question, got their answer, and moved on. So this is going to continue, and it does present a bit of a challenge that we have to overcome because it's harder to get traffic to your website if you have that amazing answer to that question. So you have to strike a little bit of a balance.
Excellent. And zero-click searches are on the rise. So make sure that you're paying attention, make sure that you're looking at what people are asking and answer those questions for them. This actually fits in nicely with that too. Featured snippets in people always ask. So if you're writing good quality content, you're structuring it in a way that answers a specific search query, you have the opportunity to earn a featured snippet. And I will tell you that if you can earn a featured snippet that shows up above all of the organic listings, this is the holy grail. and to think through how you get a featured snippet. Prudence mentioned it earlier when she was talking about different ways that people are using search intent. And a lot of people are looking for how-tos, okay? Ask and answer questions. Like, what are the most common interview questions? What should I ask during a reference check? If you can use that as the title of your blog post and then go into a very structured list of answers, you have an opportunity to earn a featured snippet. There's also tools out there that we use to help. There's SEMrush, there's SE ranking, there's Ahrefs. They will show you what search queries, what keywords, what questions right now have earned a featured snippet, and then you can go back, reverse engineer it, produce better content. Another tool I like is called Answer the Public. Be direct and get to the point. These featured snippets are usually 40 to 50 words. So in that first paragraph of your blog post, answer that question quickly, get to the point, don't put in a lot of fluff. And then you want to make sure that you use heading tags. So H1 tags, H2 tags, etc. Prudence, local SEO. What do we need to know?
Well, if you have a location, a physical location, then you want to think about local SEO. Even if you serve a broader customer base or you fill jobs outside your local area, local SEO is still important. Why? Because that map shows up when people do local searches. And a lot of times that's where you really want to be. That's where people look, they say, oh, that's right near me. I'm going to click on that. That's the website I'm going to go to. They can even call you without ever having to go to your website from that map page. So again, there's no guarantee for appearing in local listings in terms of SEO, but you can increase your chances if you follow a couple steps. First and foremost, you want to claim your Google My Business listing, and you want to claim that yourself. You don't want to really have a third party do that. There's a lot of companies out there that will say they'll do it for you. Don't do that, because then they own it and it can be a real hassle to try to get back control of your listing. You want to include NAP on your website. What is that? That is your name, address, and phone number, and it should be consistent. So, for example, if you want to show up on a map for Buffalo, but your address is not in Buffalo proper, Google will see a discrepancy there, and it'll create a little bit of a problem. So you have to make sure that that's consistent throughout. You want to upload images of your office, and you could also upload other images. Google likes new pictures and new things. You want to make sure your customers are leaving positive reviews on your listing. And you also want to claim other local citations, your Yelp, your Bing, your Facebook, etc. Make sure you own all of those.
And video. How's video play into SEO?
Video is going to be more important. It's been important, but it's going to become even more important this year. I think over 62% of searches include results mostly from YouTube. We've all seen that when we do our own searches. They tend to have a higher click-through rate, and posts with videos attract 3 times more inbound links. People like linking to videos. So just remember, if you're thinking about video, it should have a purpose. You shouldn't just create video for video's sake. Again, it should be useful, it should be authoritative, et cetera, et cetera. All the same best practices apply.
Great. Voice search. I'm giggling here because as we were prepping this presentation, Prudence and I were on the phone together talking about what we wanted to cover, and voice is growing, right? So 20% of all searches are voice. 58% of consumers use it to find business info. There's 1 billion voice searches every single month. The EAT principle still applies, but we want small bites, bite-sized information. It's still evolving though, and I laughed because as Prudence and I were planning for this, I did a search and I asked Alexa about local staffing companies, and the search result was so far off and useless that it didn't have any value at all. But I think it's important to think about, because it is evolving, a lot more people are using it, it is going to become more prominent. So the one key takeaway for me is answer very, very specific questions with bite-sized information. And over time, if you build up a library of that, as search continues, voice search continues to evolve, you're going to win that game. And then another thing just to be on the lookout for, there's a battle going on right now down under. In Australia, Australia and Google are butting heads. There's concerns over privacy. data tracking and access, advertising restrictions, content and news media battles. There's a whole lot going on. I don't know where this is going to go, but it could impact the states here. So I think it's just important to keep an eye on what's going on in other parts of the world and think about how that might impact us. And last but not least, we have a live look in at Prudence when she hears the phrase Google Analytics 4.
I just instinctively put my head down when that slide popped up. Despite that harrowing look on my face, it's not any reason for any of you guys to panic. Google Analytics 4 is coming. Google's revamping the way it's doing analytics. They have not set a final date for release. We don't know when exactly it's going to flip over. Hopefully when it flips over, you won't lose all of your old stuff, but Google likes to have fun with us, so we don't know, but I'm staying on top of it. And something to think about with Google Analytics 4 is that it's really going to be focused on that user experience that we've talked about this entire time. That's why we've been talking about it, because it's just going to be so much more important moving forward. So if you've been taking notes and you've been following what we've been saying, you'll be set up really well for good rankings and good performance, and you'll be thrilled to see your metrics in Google Analytics 4. And if you are a Haley client, there will be information coming to you eventually on the switch and how we're going to handle that.
Yeah, it's still in beta. It's not released. We're researching. We're figuring out how it impacts you. So more to come on that. But don't get flustered if you hear Google Analytics 4 and this massive transition. We're evaluating it, and we'll have more information there. All right. We're at the top of the hour here. I do have a lot of questions, a lot of great questions that came in. We will stay on and cover all of those, but wanted to introduce some new digital marketing bundles we have for you to help improve recruiting, attract clients, strengthen your positioning, take advantage of all those ideas that I just shared, that Prudence just shared today. So new for 2022, we have some great bundles. You can visit and see those at haleymarketing.com/digital-marketing-bundles. And we encourage you to sign up for our Big Ideas newsletter. You'll get great information that you can leverage in your staffing organization, all for free. And I mentioned those bundles. We are actually going to be demoing one of those bundles, our Google Mastery demo. Myself and David Stearns will be doing that February 15th. And we're going to look at dominating search to get ranked and found by more candidates and clients. And we'll show you how we're doing that for companies right now. With that said, and you can reserve your seat at lunchwithhaley.com. With that said, let's transition. Let's open it up to questions. And I know that we had a lot come in. Jennifer asks, you are talking a lot about keywords. Are these words that we need or should purchase from Google? Great question, Jennifer. And there's really two different approaches here. What we were talking about today is organic or search engine optimization. So when you do any Google search, at the top, you're going to see a bunch of sponsored or paid listings. And I say a bunch, there's, depending on the search, one, maybe three listings that come up above organic search results. Okay, those are paid listings. Those are keywords that you can purchase from Google. You pay your way to the top of the rankings. There is validity in that. A lot of people do click on them, but a lot of people do scroll down to the organic listings and skip past those. So the methodologies we were speaking to today focus on getting you listed in those organic or those quote unquote free listings. So we're not buying those keywords, but we are looking at keyword search trends to determine where we want to focus our search engine optimization efforts to win that free organic search battle. Next question from Sarah. Are structured data, rich content, and schema still relevant for Google? Awesome question, Sarah. Yes, they are. So schema markup. not to get too technical, but on the back end of your website, it's a way in the code to code certain elements or content or categorize content in a way that Google understands what it actually is. This comes into play a lot in your job postings. So if you're using the Haley Marketing Group job board or career portal, this is done for you on the back end. Okay, we're structuring the data in the code so that when Google indexes it, they can see what the job title is, what the job location is, what the city is, what the pay rate is, what the description is, what the requirements are. So everything is mapped on the back end so that Google can easily index this and map fields to their criteria there. So it is extremely relevant. Prudence, you mentioned video earlier. Video is obviously part of rich media. How important is rich media in terms of SEO?
Extremely important. And we do this for some clients. It's important because not everyone wants to read, right? I mean, you know, I went through all that stuff about those long form blog posts and everything, but some people like infographics, some people like videos, some, you know, you want to cover all of your bases and give people different ways to consume your content.
Great. Another question came in. If we're a Haley client currently, where do we see all of our Google Analytics information that you're showing? If we built your website, we most likely installed Google Analytics on that. There's very rare cases in which maybe you had analytics installed already and we carried that code over. But if we built your website, you can reach out to our success team, either going to Help Me Haley or reaching out at success@haleymarketing.com and request access to Google Analytics, and we'll help you get that. If you need to install analytics on your site, it's just a little piece of code that you add, and then you have access. All right, another question came in. Does Google publish what the most commonly asked questions are given a set of keywords? For example, healthcare, interim management, staffing. So do they publish this? I mean, yes and no. They're like, you're not going to go and say, hey, give me a list of all the keywords tied to healthcare, interim management, staffing. But two quick and easy ways that you can get this. Go type that in, start typing that into Google, and Google has autofill. Okay, so you're going to start typing in healthcare, interim, staffing, and you're going to see this whole list of different search queries that people use tied to interim healthcare staffing, and use different variations of that keyword. Okay, so that's going to give you a good indicator of what people are searching for. If Google's pre-populating it, it means that a higher percentage of people are using terms and asking those questions. The other thing you can do is run that search. Don't click on anything, scroll all the way to the bottom, and you'll see a section called People Also Ask. And that's a great indicator for, again, what people are typing in. Another tool I like is called answerthepublic.com. You type in any keyword and it shows you a whole list of questions that people are asking tied to that keyword. That's a great tool to use. And then internally here, we use a lot of paid technology like SEMrush, Ahrefs, SE Ranking, where we can run a keyword and look at all the semantically related terms, questions, queries, and then we get actual traffic data tied to that. And then we also have competitive analysis. We see who's ranking there. We see, you know, what type of content is ranking for those keywords. So it gets really strategic. But if you're looking for something down and dirty, just go start typing it into Google and see what comes up. All right. Let's see. David asked, I implemented Google for Jobs structured data. They are only saying they have a small fraction of our jobs indexed. We should have almost 3,000, but it's just a handful. David, so Google for Jobs is still technically, I believe, in beta. And what I have found is that over the last few months, it looks like across the staffing industry, some of that traffic has subsided and they're not indexing as many of those jobs. What I have seen is that there's been more focus on full-time and permanent positions, and those seem to be getting top ranking right now. There's no way to guarantee that it will show up or get indexed or pulled in, unfortunately. What you may need to look at is restructuring some of that data. You may need to look at making sure you're adding things like where the job actually is, address wise, making sure that you have pay rate. You may need to look at the category of job and make sure that the category is aligned with Google's category. So there's a whole bunch of factors there. Tough to answer that one without actually looking at it, but those are some things that you want to examine. Kyle asked, will a copy of the presentation be sent? Sure will. So we're recording this. We'll make it available in an email to those that registered. And then you can always look at old recordings at lunchwithhaley.com. And in the next few days, we'll make that available. All right, another question came in. How important is it to add articles and photos to Google My Business? Prudence, maybe you can answer this one since it's tied to local.
Yeah, so Google wants to know that your business is active. And one of the best ways to show them that your business is active is to be active with your Google My Business page. When I say active, I certainly don't mean daily. Once a month, go in, maybe add something. An easy way to keep it fresh is if you go in and you see that people have asked you questions, answer those questions, interact with people just like you would on Facebook. You'll have a lot less on Google My Business. But if someone does ask a question, answer it nicely, answer it politely. But it's like once a month, if you go in and stick something in there, it just shows that it's fresh and active. But all of the Google My Business optimization in the world won't get you very far if you're not implementing other important strategies as well.
Great answer. Thank you. All right, that concludes all of our questions. If you did have questions that you didn't ask or want to talk to somebody, shoot us a message, reach out. Let me pull up our contact information here. Whoops, wrong way. We're happy to answer any questions that you do have. So reach out to us, 888-696-2900. Send us an email at info@haleymarketing.com. Reach out and connect with Prudence and I on LinkedIn. Send us an email. We're happy to answer any of those questions. Hope you find value in today's presentation and can use some of these strategies, techniques, tactics for your own staffing company in 2022 and beyond. Thank you so much, everybody, and hopefully we'll see you at our next product demo. Take care.